moved on to another station because she was traveling so far. And she had an opportunity to move somewhere else, so she did. Alina still does shows on Kaotic with Zig on a Monday night. So there's a great chemistry there amongst the different shows. There's some great shows, music shows, interview shows. But the big plan for me was always to create a punk station, because I continually see and hear people complain there are no punk stations. I know that there's no money in punk rock. There never has been. There never will be.
Mm-hmm.
But there was. I don't know if you saw it on anywhere on Facebook or the net yesterday. That I believe Iggy Pop is doing a 4-hour series on these punk legends and getting them all together.
Mm-hmm.
And last, the first one, and you had Johnny Rotten, you had Marky Ramone, Tim Rollins, from Black Flag. I'm not sure I even got his name right, because I'm so into British punk that it's difficult for me to even relate to Americans and get those names.
I think referring to Henry Rollins, which he broke away, and they're out of Minneapolis, and he went on to do some solo work. He actually did pretty good. That was Henry Rollins you're thinking of.
Henry Rollins, yeah. What am I saying? Henry Rollins. But from all accounts of it, he didn't get to speak too much, because Johnny Rotten and Marky Ramone were going at each other and just fighting about the ultimate thing that punks don't fight about, and that is who is more punk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is the one question that you should never ask, and you should just shut up and get off the stage.
Mm-hmm.
It's punk is just being a punk. Punk is just being us. You don't try and compete. You don't try and ask. You don't try and be better than anyone else, dress better than anyone else. Hey, just be, man. Just be and live.
Or just meant to be yourself and don't worry about anybody else. That's what it sounds like.
That's exactly what it's about, you know? And that's where my life has taken me.
Mm-hmm. That is amazing, too. And how do you compare the British punk scene to the American punk scene?
Back in the day, see, it's very difficult to compare it not being in them both at the same time. I mean, I grew up just outside of London, and when punk exploded in 77 was a 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So that experience was my experience. I had no idea what was going on in America at the same time. So now I'm in the Southern California, Orange County punk scene, and I have been lucky enough to interview all these different bands from that scene. It makes me wish that I was here at that time, when everyone else is saying, "Are you crazy? You grew up in the heart of London with punk." So back then, I think we're totally different. Nowadays, I haven't been back to see any punk and be in the scene over there forever. But from my understanding, we seem to have in Southern California the best punk scene in the world at this moment. We get nothing but great bands coming through here all the time. We get great new bands playing. We got loads and loads of local venues to go and see punk bands. So I don't think it's ever been stronger than it is now.
It does sound like it's been pretty strong, too. And who are some of the famous people you have interviewed throughout the years, and what was your most favorite one?
I think my favorite one was GBH. We had GBH on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told GBH are a difficult band to interview. We had Ross Lomas, the bass player, on. And he came in, and his answers to every question was just a yes or no. And it's the ultimate of, like, how do you get something out of a guest who the week before was playing in front of 80,000 people at a punk festival in Brazil? Yeah, any question you ask him is, yeah, no, not really. Yeah, okay. And it came about, so we kept going back to music. And I just happened to mention, well, what were you doing in 1976 before the big explosion happened? What bands were you listening to? And he was listening to a band that was the same favorite band as mine. And I mentioned them. Shawaddy Waddy was the band. And his face lit up. And for the rest of the show, it was nothing but fun. He came back on the show twice after that. His sense of humor is out of control. But the great thing about it, and we were kind of talking about it a little bit ago, I moved house 2 weeks after that show, and out of nowhere, I got a phone call from him. Would I need to use his truck? Can he help me move? So here's a guy that's been in one of the world's top punk bands for 40 years. And 2 weeks after we did the show, he's humping furniture into a storage unit with me. And it's things like that that make you realise that the punk genre is a different genre than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
We've had the Dickies on the show. We've had the Addicts on the show. DJ Ramone was on Kaotic Radio. Bad Religion. Members of Social Distortion. I mean, the list is long. It's funny going back and trying to remember them. It's Stiff Little Fingers, the Cockney Rejects. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey talking to these people.
It does sound amazing, too. And, of course, there's a Chicago band, which I'm familiar with. It's called Ministry. So I don't know if anybody from Chicago, get on Kaotic Radio. So if you've ever interviewed Ministry, so if you have, what were your thoughts on them?
You know what Ministry were on the show? Sin Quirin was on. An amazingly nice guy. Just unreal that people... It's unreal to me having what I consider just a regular background, getting up, going to work every day. I get my fun out of life with my soccer and playing in a band and doing radio. But these people are touring the world, recording and giving up their time to come and sit with us. That's the most amazing thing. The things that they've done in their life that just make me amazed. And then the next minute, they're just regular people looking after their kids, taking their dog for a walk, the boring things that we do.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, watching soccer as well, too. And, of course, there's more to it than soccer. Of course, states, baseball, football, basketball, hockey, and the Olympics and everything else. But, we'll get to some of that in just a minute here, along with more on Kaotic Radio. Listen to the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com. Powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking a budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable, custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Evan Fine of the Senior Reserve Group. When you start thinking about retirement, who are you going to call about Medicare? Why call the best? Evan Fine of Senior Reserve Group for all your health insurance needs. Evan can be reached at 1-800-650-9357. That's 1-800-650-9357. Or email to evanfine@seniorreservegroup.com. Evan is licensed in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Delaware, South Carolina, and Florida. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. Also on Facebook at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can also download and listen to episodes on SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, and watch the interview on YouTube as well. We're here with Dutchie Hollands from Kaotic Radio. He's been in the business for over 30 years. He's been the punk rock scene for nearly 30, 40 years, and came to California all because of the Beach Boys and taking in their sound as well, too. And, of course, we talk about a number of things and, a little bit more on Kaotic Radio. And, first of all, let's talk about your famous morning duo on Kaotic Radio, number one. And it's the Pat and Janky Show.
The guys are crazy, I'll tell you that. The guys are crazy. And that's one of the great things about people outside of what I do. I do music. I do interviews with music people. These guys are doing their kind of stuff with with celebrities, and it's funny because I was looking at the celebrities they've had on. I listen to their shows, and the people that they've had on, I wouldn't know who they were. But then I read about them, and the equivalent of what they do in other things that they do is just amazing. Pat and Jeff, again, you know what? A crazy duo who get the best out of their guests. What can you say?
I can imagine that. And I'm sure they don't need coffee to get anybody to wake up. And did they ever talk soccer by any chance? I'm just curious, since we're on the subject of soccer.
They don't. No, they have nothing to do with it. But Jeff is a very huge punk fan, and has done more than a few morning shows with different punk guests. Jack Grisham from TSOL was in a couple of times with him. And then he hosted a couple of times with a great friend of mine and a great drummer from a local punk band called Mad Parade, with Mike, give me a second. Mike Stoker. I'm getting the name wrong, so you might have to edit that out your show. But Mike from Mad Parade has been in, and Mike actually went and drummed and went on tour with Jam 69 for a while. So, yeah, he's got some great guests on there.
Yeah, that's amazing, too. And, of course, you also had David Bowie, which some people say would be like the great godfather of punk. And you can just tell us a little bit about him, starting off in London and just being an amazing personality, just having an offshoot of Iggy Pop and Ziggy Stardust and everything else. So, just give us some of your thoughts on David Bowie, who actually started the punk movement, or kind of like the glam rock.
Bowie to me was, one of my passions is collecting vinyl, and I have a complete wall of Bowie vinyl. I got to see him one time, and he's the only celebrity. He's the only person outside of family or friends that I cried when he died. And it took me by surprise, Mm-hmm. It took everyone by surprise that he died, but it took me by surprise that he was that deep in my life. That when he cried, I sat down. When he died, I sat down and cried. And his music I've been listening to since I was 10 years old. I went to see him in 2004 on the reality tour and was just blown away. And recently I started doing a show called Legacy. And Bowie was the first one I did. And it took me 8 weeks to get through his life, his musical life, and the stories of him. The one thing that I don't think anyone else in the music industry has adapted the way Bowie did in 6 decades of music. He released music in 6 different decades. He started in the 60s, and he finished with Black Star. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that there's anybody who has adapted that well without even thinking about it. When I did the show about Bowie, there was a lot of his music that I just didn't like. And that was the great way he adapted, because he went to different audiences without even thinking about it.
Or you simply just have a new genre that just comes in, or I remember the Bowie where he did in the 70s was kind of like a glam rock and a little bit of metal and throwing just about anything except for country. And then in the 80s, he took advantage of the MTV movement and became more new wave. And, he did took advantage of MTV greatly with all the videos, Let's Dance. And, of course, you had Blue Jean and everything else. And then he did have one stinker, though, which was, what was it, the Glass Spider Tour, Don't Let Me Down. But I have to say this, is like I really still enjoyed his music. But he seemed to adapt to what people are wanting.
Oh, without a doubt. And he was an inventor as well. When you talk about the glam rock movement, Bowie and Mark Bolan were the first two. I'm not sure which one was first, but I know they were big rivals in trying to outdo each other. was who could dress more outlandishly and who could be more glam rock, if you like.